My AI kept running to the corners of the map. Turns out I was checking visibility from his stomach. More in this video.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another devlog. In today's episode we're going to be looking at EQS and something else. Now the lighting setup is a little bit different today because I'm recording this on Easter Monday. Happy Easter to everybody. And I just thought, seeing as it's quite a nice day and it's probably best to try and get this out of the way as soon as possible. I thought I'd just do it in the day rather than doing it at night after work hours. But regardless, this video will be coming out on Friday. And so it shouldn't really affect you guys too much. But with that being said, let's get into it. Now, since we have essentially the basics of the AI, I thought it would be a good idea to start adding in what's known as strafing to my AI. And to be able to do that, I need to implement what's known as EQS in Unreal Engine. For those of you who don't know, EQS stands for Environment Query System. And so what it does is it has these points that are in the nav mesh. And so in the nav mesh, what you have is these ball points that are acting as like points in the actual navigation mesh that the AI can go to. And so being able to do that, you can do all sorts of things. Two of them are pretty complementary to each other for AI to start off with would be the strafing and a cover system. So I started doing the strafing system without animations. I did have a strafing animation when I first did this and it didn't seem to work and I had to try and figure out why that wasn't the case. That took a while. And then I finally managed to get animation sorted. It doesn't look the best. Something tells me that the animations are a problem here, not to do with the actual code. So for now I think that's fine, but I think down the line I'm going to have to address this. After doing the strafing, I then looked into doing a cover system. This cover system will act as more of a template system for all the different AI that I'm going to be making. And I had some issues with that. So what I had was that the AI would just go straight out from cover and just would stay there and it wouldn't even do anything. When I tried to look into it further, it would just go into the world origin point at 0, and it was something to do with not finding the point of interest vector. Oh my god. I lost my sanity over this, but I managed to get it working properly this time. And we've got a cover system now. So now what happens is the AI can go out of in the open and then it can go into cover. And then if the player sees the enemy, it'll just go straight back into cover again. And I think that's the AI base all covered. I'm going to have to think about doing ranged enemies next and probably different enemy types. But yeah, I think we've pretty much got a basic AI setup ready, which is great. Now, normally I would leave it off here, but there was something else that I did make, and I thought that would be worth mentioning here today. So at some point I thought it would be a good idea to perhaps maybe start doing the button prompts for the UI system at some point. And I thought I could do that now, seeing as it might be a good idea to save a bit of time further down the line. I'm not going to add it into my game just yet, but just thought I'd just kind of get the ball rolling now. So that way in the future, when I'm ready to implement it, it's all ready to go. And just like with the logo, I'm just going to show you some screenshots of how I went from point A to point B while I'm talking about how I got there. Now, in terms of having a key, I feel like the top one was the better one, because if I'm going to be making a more modern key looking set, I think the top one would have been the best one out of that. So I went with the top one. I then started experimenting with the different keys, the keys that pretty much all games use, which is the E key. And then I did a default version where it will just show on the screen, a highlighted version where it's like a hover state or if it's just being pressed. And then I did a released version where you just are releasing the button. Well, and I thought they all turned out great, except for the last one, the pressed one. I felt like you could use a little bit more work to differentiate itself between the default state and the pressed released state. I then did the F, the Q and the R key, or here you can see I then made the changes to try and differentiate between the pressed release state and the default key. Then I moved on to the mouse. I mean, to be fair, it does look pretty interesting, but it looks very square. And trying to do a mouse is not easy. And unless you're a graphic designer, then I guess you must find it incredibly easy. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm most definitely not a graphic designer. Why would I want to be one of those people? So I had to do buttons for the middle mouse button, the left mouse button, and the right mouse button. Then I made some changes in terms of the overall shape of the mouse, and I quite like this. But I still feel like that with the left and the right mouse button prompts, they kind of needed a bit more work, because although they look very designery, they don't really communicate very well in terms of the UI button prompts. And they could definitely use a lot more work. Even I can recognize that. So I made some changes, and here are the changes that I made. You can definitely see that it has a sense of being a middle mouse button prompt, a left mouse button prompt, and a right mouse button prompt, and you could easily read it. Then I went on to do the other keys, like the tab key, the alt key, the shift key, and the spacebar key. And then I did some of the other main button prompts that you find in games. And then I also tried to do a mouse move around as well, which is pretty simple in concept, but I feel like it kind of communicates very well. The spacebar I didn't really think was good enough, so I changed the spacebar and then did the control key as well. And then I decided to do every single letter in the alphabet, as well as numbers 0 to 9. Then I did the enter key, the plus and the minus key. Then I did a mouse scroll. I did actually look at this a bit later and found that it didn't really help in terms of communicating what the scroll wheel would be. And then finally I did the square brackets, the semicolon, the apostrophe, the comma, the period, and the arrow keys, as well as all the function keys. I also did a highlighted version of the left and the right mouse button keys because I felt like they were missing that. And there we have it, a nice stylized UI key button prompt system. Looks quite interesting, I really like it. I really loved the way it turned out, even if I'm not a graphic designer myself. But nevertheless, it turned out really great. Now, of course, I'm not going to be implementing it in the game just yet. I still have to wait until we're a bit more further along in development for that, but yeah, I think we got the buttons already. But that's everything for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to keep a but that just about does it. If you enjoy the journey, consider subscribing. But hey, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.